This is the BBC.
Brilliant you've downloaded this jumbo edition of Crossing Continents. I'm Linda Presley. Elephants are fascinating, beautiful, but they're also really very, very scary, especially the young male crop raiders determined to get bigger and healthier before they mate. Now, when we were in Sri Lanka, one expert described these elephants to us as Sinbads. Single income, no baby, absolutely desperate. Anyway, here's Crossing Continents. Is that a noise she makes when she's angry or she's happy?
She's happy, actually.
Dr Akalanka's the vet on duty at Sri Lanka's Wildlife Department facility near the ancient temple city of Polonnaruwa. Layla's one of his charges. She's a noisy baby elephant already as tall as he is and was brought here to recover after she ate what's known locally as a hakapata, gunpowder hidden inside a fruity treat.
The mandible and other part of the mouth got fractured, half of the tongue completely damaged. That's why the saliva hanging out from the mouth.
Oh, because half the tongue is gone.
Yeah, more than half.
Death by hakapata is a cruel one. Unable to eat, the animal starves to death. There's a profound contradiction here. Elephants are at the heart of Buddhist cultural and religious life for many Sri Lankans, but they're also feared, violent marauders, destroying crops and competing with people for land, hence the hakapatas. In this week's Crossing Continents, we'll be heading deep into rural wild elephant territory. And later in the city of Colombo, we'll explore how ownership of captive elephants has become entangled in politics. Layla's learned to eat with half a tongue, but this wasn't her only injury.
Also, there are some bullets.
Bullet holes?
It's a bullet.
Who shot her?
Yeah, I think farmers or villagers, maybe.
How often are you dealing with elephants that have been hurt or killed by people here in your district?
It's about 40 due to hakapatas annually. Very high amount mortality.
So most of them will die?
Yeah.
And what about shooting elephants? Is that common as well in this area?
For all country, it's common.
But everybody says to us the thing about Sri Lankans is that they respect elephants even if they're threatened by them. You know, they want to live in peace with them. They don't want to hurt them.
Actually, not every farmer is shooting animals, but few farmers, they are doing that thing.
So culturally, it's changing. There's a shift, perhaps.
Yeah. Previously, the farmers, they didn't do that, kill animal.
And so what do you think when you're presented with a case like this gorgeous 3.5-year-old?
We tried our best. She has good chance to survive.
Bumping along in the back of an open-sided jeep, we're deep in elephant country. The Udawalawa National Park's home to between 400 and 600 of these magnificent creatures. And Dr. Wijaya Mohan, a wildlife biologist, has brought us here to see them in their natural habitat.
Can you smell the must?
I can smell something.
Yeah, that's must. It's huge, and you can see there's a secretion in between the eye and the ear, so you can smell that now.
But this elephant is like, it's 100 meters from us.
Because the wind is blowing towards us, I can smell it easily. It's a surge of the testosterone level during that time. It may be related with the sexual activity of the male, but when you see here, that huge bull, you can see how large it is compared to all the other females. So he must be feeding very good, and he must have sometime gone out of the park into the farming land.
So what's so special about the Sri Lankan elephant?
Of all the Asian elephants, Sri Lanka is the largest. And among the Sri Lankan elephants, the special thing is among the males, the tuskers population is extremely low.
But it makes them less attractive to poachers then?
Definitely, there's no poaching pressure as such.
And what do we know about the numbers of Sri Lankan elephants?
It's on the increase, on the rise. The minimum number that we found was closer to 6,000. For every 100 females, there are 33 calves.
33 calves?
Yeah. So that's a good kind of a growing population, I would say.
But if the population of elephants is increasing and the Sri Lankan population is increasing, is more human-elephant conflict inevitable?
If you look at the figures of human-elephant conflict, figures of human death and elephant death, it's showing a kind of an increasing trend again. but it's not a threat to the elephant population in Sri Lanka. From my personal point of view, I won't mind losing an elephant in the wild, but my heart will go to losing a human life, because losing a human life will affect the entire generation of that family.
In Sri Lanka, human-elephant conflict is more intense than anywhere else in the world. Around 70 people are killed every year, and perhaps 250 elephants lose their lives. From the national park, we head towards the Indian Ocean and the Eastern Province, which saw some of the bloodiest years of Sri Lanka's civil war. The conflict pitched the Sinhala majority against the Tamil minority, although in this region Tamil speakers are more numerous. In the village of Pavakodi Chennai, 10 kilometres inland from the coast, Arun Narokyanathan, our local producer and translator, tells me more about the history.
During the war, this is predominantly occupied by the Tamil Tigers.
And so lots of the families then, they moved out of this area?
Yeah, so this is very difficult area because always a volatile area. People suffered continuous, repeated displacements from this area.
So when the people left here, when the fighting was really intense, the elephants moved in?
Yeah, when people move away, nobody to look after this area and jungle grows. So elephants enter the area and roam free. After the war, when people come back, there was an increase in human-elephant conflict.
Well, we've just stopped Raja Turai on his way to work. He's got an ancient bicycle that's loaded, piled high with firewood. He's on his way to the next village to sell it. He's a tiny, rangy man in a baseball cap, a sarong and checked shirt. He's also a father who's still grieving.
We went to the river for a bath, and when we returning home, elephant attack from behind. It was so close, like you standing here. It was so close, I couldn't do anything. Elephant lifted him along with his daughter and threw them on the ground. I lost my consciousness. By the time I came to, my daughter already died.
Sulojini was 6 years old. So how does the family keep safe now?
They are chasing the elephants away, but it comes back again and again. Every day we have to be awake during the night.
So you don't sleep?
Last night also I was awake.
People, crops, property, everything's at risk from attack. And with 70% of Sri Lanka's elephants roaming outside the national parks, millions of people from all communities live in fear. Raja Turai directs us to his family home to meet Indrani, his wife.
It was like this. After elephant attack, that wall broke down.
OK, so on one side of Indrani's house is a kind of mud brick wall, and the other is just flimsy old corrugated metal. And were you inside the house when that happened?
Yes, we were inside.
That must have been terrifying.
Elephant trumpeted and ran towards this house and hit the roof and the wall.
This was before Sulojini was killed?
Yes.
What did she say about it at that time?
That night she got fever because of fear.
Well, a few hundred metres out of the village of Pavakodi Chennai, Delakshkaran, who's the secretary of the Rural Development Society here, is taking us to the place where Sulojini and her dad were attacked. And it's all cultivated. There are fruit bushes all around. There's paddy just a few metres away. And the bits of bush, I guess, would be about 10 metres high. It was from behind one of these bushes that the elephant suddenly appeared. I have to say that it's quite a nervous walk out of the village. Dilakshkaran is just getting out his phone and he's showing us a video of a tethered elephant.
We think this is the elephant that killed Sulojini because then in that time this elephant causes so many harm to the houses and people.
It was caught by the Department of Wildlife and transported to a national park. Government compensation for the families of those killed or injured by elephants has increased recently, and after Sulojini's death, the pleas from villagers for electricity were finally answered. Now there's a neighbourhood watch scheme here, and many families keep firecrackers at home ready to frighten the elephants away. But that may not be the answer.
You get into kind of an arms race, and elephants are attracted to most crops that we cultivate. But if an elephant comes and tries to eat some of it, then the people will shout at the elephant and the elephant is scared, the elephant will go away.
Dr. Prutu Fernando has spent much of his professional life trying to mitigate human-elephant conflict in Sri Lanka.
And then slowly the elephant realizes that, okay, the people are only shouting, doesn't really harm me. So next time, even when they shout, he still comes and raids. So then the people start throwing things at them, lighting fires, and then they run off. But after a while, again, they realize, okay, this is no big deal. Now the government actually distributes very large firecrackers, which are called elephant thunders.
Elephant thunders?
Yeah. It goes off like a bomb. It makes a huge noise. But again, you keep doing that, the elephants realize, okay, this is only a lot of noise. So they still come and raid. So ultimately, people end up shooting the elephants. All these things are confrontational.
We meet Dr. Fernando on the edge of a paddy field on the southern tip of Sri Lanka, on the only day of heavy rainfall during a lengthy period of serious drought. He's pioneered seasonal electric fencing. Elephants are free to roam agricultural land during fallow periods, and farmers only erect the barriers when they plant.
The day they harvest, they will take down the fence and take it back home.
So here, one of the fence posts, yeah?
So the whole thing is electrified, including the fence post.
And how much of a shock would that give an elephant?
A very big shock because it's 6,000 to 9,000 volts, but it has a very low amperage. So you get a thundering shock, but it doesn't harm you.
There's already around 3,500 kilometres of electrified fencing in Sri Lanka, but much of it's in the wrong place. It needs to be close to areas of farming activity. If it's seasonal, it means elephants and people can share the space.
The advantage in fencing is, one, it works. Second, it's not confrontational. If you maintain the fences well, elephants will learn that this is a no-go boundary. So then I think that leads to the possibility of better coexistence.
That's the ultimate aim, coexistence. People and elephants sharing space without violence. Perhaps there are lessons to be learnt too from those who trace their ancestry to some of Sri Lanka's earliest inhabitants. Well, the lush tropical vegetation is dripping and glistening with very fresh raindrops. And we're in the southeast of Sri Lanka, and we're on our way to the village of the Ratugala Veda community, an indigenous community, and I'm following very closely behind the chief, who's wearing a cream and red sarong, and slung over his shoulder he has an axe. Nothing on his feet. I wish I was moving with the sure-footedness of Chief Sudavanilato. Uh-oh, dogs. Through a small patch of paddy. So how do you defend your crops against the elephants?
We do our prayers to God. Of course, elephant likes rice, but because of a mandre, kind of a tricks, elephant won't come to this village.
What is this, mandre, these tricks? Chief's asking someone else to explain. The explanation as we stand in front of totems of elephant bone, a squirrel's tail, feathers and dried plants comes in the form of an ancient chant, invoking God and the spirits for protection. No one here can remember a time when anyone's been injured, let alone killed, by an elephant. And apart from asking the divine, there are practical ways to stay safe, says Kusumalato, who lives here with her husband, Paramalato.
We climb on top of a stone.
Oh, you climb on top of a big rock. So, Paramalato, when you're in the jungle, how do you know when an elephant is close by?
We can sense it because we have that power in us.
And do you think that sensing that you have, is it something that you could teach other communities in Sri Lanka?
To learn that sense, you can't do it overnight. You have to be with them for a while to learn this art. If we harm the elephant, they will harm us.
Living with wild elephants is complicated. But far away in Sri Lanka's big cities, the population of captive elephants has also provoked discord and debate. At Perahera's vibrant Buddhist processions of drumming, music and dance, elephants dressed in lavish garments, lit up like gigantic lanterns and swaying through the streets are the main attraction. Sri Lanka has a distinctive Buddhist identity, and in these processions, elephants aren't some fringe attraction. They're central. Elephants really matter. 127 of them are licensed for pageants, and some live at temples. At the Alambatinya Ramaya Buddhist temple in Colombo, Sama is ripping the bark from cut pieces of palm tree and she's chomping it in her huge mouth. Udaway Damaloka is the head monk here.
You want to go close
I don't
to
want to
her?
go into... No, thank you.
No, she's very kind.
I'm sure.
She's very kind.
I'm
No, don't worry. She like baby. Yeah, Pute, Sama vekkang inne.
So how many years has Sama been in the temple?
Here, I think 8-9 years, yeah. I think she's very happy.
So Sama is just being unchained
Yeah.
from her compound, and I guess the compound is about 50 metres long, and there's a little hut for her keepers there. Elephants are very social animals, and she's here all by herself.
Once a week, she going Perahera or somewhere. She meeting many elephants.
So
and
when she
baby.
goes on the religious processions, that's when she meets other elephants.
Yes, yes, yes.
There's an ancient tradition of keeping animals like Sama in Buddhist temples. And in private homes too, elephant ownership is a mark of prestige, the ultimate status symbol for members of the elite. Capturing elephants in the wild was banned in the 1970s, but the trade continued. Babies were reportedly bought and sold for as much as $200,000, their owners' documents forged. According to critics, the government of Sri Lanka's strongman president Mahinda Rajapaksa turned a blind eye. But he was defeated at the polls in 2015. The new government's changed a lot of things in Sri Lanka, and that includes policy on elephants. They began a crackdown on unlawfully owned elephants, those they suspected stolen from the bush. So for Sama, you have the legal documents.
I think so.
But you also had a baby elephant here.
Yeah, somebody dropped the baby elephant here.
And then the Department of Wildlife came
Yeah.
and they took the elephant. They confiscated the elephant.
Yeah. Because they asked about documents. I told we don't have any documents.
So you went to court. I saw you on YouTube.
Yes. I have a case about that. I think it's mainly political problem.
Because you're quite friendly with the former president, Rajapaksa, no?
Yes. They want to punish me.
But the government have a point, though, really, don't they? Because a lot of people in Sri Lanka think it's not a good idea to keep elephants, especially if they've been taken from the wild.
Wild elephant, everyday killing and problem. But here, he'll stay like child.
You're looking after them like children. But it's not very much space.
But they walking around roads. She also walked 20 kilometers today.
So Sama, she's come to greet the head monk, and he's just going to feed her some apples and bananas. He's whispering to her. Udue Damaloko will be back in court on charges related to the baby elephant he kept here. Sri Lanka's police are investigating more than 50 similar cases. Dozens of elephants have been taken away from owners, one from the home of a magistrate, another kept by a town mayor. And new rules punish cruelty, aiming to ensure minimum standards of care for captive elephants. So they must have a daily walk of at least 5 kilometres and 2.5 hours of bathing. Some Buddhists see all of this as a political assault on tradition, and they worry the swoop on illegal animals will mean a shortage for processions.
This tree is for this worms.
Treatment for worms for elephants?
yeah.
What kind of tree is this?
This is the kohomba tree.
How quickly would Raja be cured with that?
When we give in the evening, morning he is cured.
Dr. Harsha Damavijaya practices Ayurveda, the traditional medicine of the subcontinent. He treats animals and people. His own elephant, Raja, is perhaps the most venerated because he carries the sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha during Sri Lanka's most important procession. Unfortunately, we don't meet Raja at the Colombo clinic. Dr. Damavijaya keeps his mighty tusker at home.
There in the garden, the elephant is there, always there. Our home has elephants from about 100 years. We love them actually. Because of that, they live more than in the jungle.
So they live longer than when they live in the jungle?
They live about 80 to 85 years.
And what does it mean in Sri Lanka to be the owner of an elephant?
Some people say you are the proud owner of the tusker. So I don't think like that. I am a simple person. I don't take that prestige.
The Department of Wildlife has confiscated quite a lot of elephants. What did you think about that?
I don't like to talk about that.
Do you think there are enough elephants for the Buddhist processions now in Sri Lanka?
No, it is lacking. There is a shortage of elephants for the Perahera. The government should give some elephants out.
From where, though?
No, we can't suggest from where.
You think they should be more elephants should be captured from the wild?
No, that is also we don't see.
And how many elephants do you think that
are
needed?
Around 250 elephants.
What, double the number that there are available now?
Yeah. Because in Western countries, there are no religious processions. If you are a Sri Lankan, your mind will change.
The clergy, as well as others, are trying to say that me personally and the Department of Wildlife Conservation, when I was heading it, was trying to stop the temple procession culture in this country. That is not what we were trying to do. What we were saying is you cannot have illegally captured elephants in processions.
Sumit Pilapatiya is a former environmentalist for the World Bank and an elephant researcher. He became Director General of the Department of Wildlife Conservation. From what he says, it seems the government's commitment to elephant welfare began to fray quite quickly, and he quit just weeks into the job.
The clergy from the temples, as well as these owners, have been putting pressure on the current regime to try to get these elephants released.
So, and that pressure in turn was put on you to release
Yes,
those elephants that have been detained?
Yes. At a very high-level meeting of government, I was requested to use a loophole in the law to try to get these elephants released to be used in temple processions. I felt...
Who asked you to do that?
At very high levels of government, I would like to say.
President?
Well, I wouldn't like to get into the details of that meeting. There was a very high-level meeting.
And what did you say?
Well, I said while it is legally possible to do that, as Director General of Wildlife, I felt it was completely unethical for me to do it, and it was against my conscience to do it, so I refused. The captive elephants that are legally licensed that are being used in temple processions, that is legal.
And you're not against that?
As Director General of Wildlife, Sumit Pilapatiya couldn't be against that because that is the law. But as an individual today, I don't believe elephants should be in captivity because you cannot domesticate an elephant like a cat or a dog. There are wild elephants in captivity.
Colombo's Gangaramaya temple is one of Sri Lanka's most influential. Its lofty open spaces filled with devotees and birdsong. The head monk here is someone who's warned of the threat to Buddhism from powerful groups with an animal cruelty agenda. Known respectfully as Swami Wamsi, we're not able to talk to him, but we sit down with a resident priest, Kirindi Asaji, and when I ask him about court action against illicit elephant owners, the interview goes quite badly.
We haven't given any comments.
Right. It's just that I'd seen Swami Wanzi quoted on this. The view that was expressed was that there is a concern that the government was being influenced by foreign NGOs, animal rights.
About these things, my knowledge is very poor.
The other reason I wanted to come to this temple was I read that you have an elephant here called Ganga. Is the elephant still with you?
You are talking about some issues, no? Then we don't like to give any comments about this one.
Okay, but what about the elephant that was here, Ganga, the elephant? Is that elephant still here, resident?
I don't like to talk these things, no? I don't want to continue this interview.
Okay, all right. And there the interview ended. Now, you might be familiar with Ganga. She's been the focus of a national and international campaign to free her from the temple. Her pictures appeared across social media platforms and thousands of signed petitions. Last year, because the authorities believed she was stolen from the bush, a judge ordered her to be taken into the care of the state. But this was challenged in court, so it never happened. As we're leaving the temple, Arun spies something across the road next to the car park. Where?
Yeah,
Whose elephant is that?
Yeah.
There's an elephant tossing around a few leaves. It's chained, nodding its head a lot.
Ganga.
This is Ganga. And is it always kept here? This is where it lives?
During the night it will stay here, but in the morning it goes to the temple and they bathe it and give food and all.
Does it go for a walk?
Yeah, it goes for a walk from here to the temple to this area.
Right, well that's not very far, is it?
Yeah.
That's like...
About 50 meters.
A man questions Arun. We're from the BBC. He's working with us. The guy who was just in the temple there when the monks stopped the interview has just come to see us. I don't think he likes it that we've actually found Ganga. When we meet the Minister for Wildlife, Gamani Jawikrama Pereira, I ask him about Ganga, how he heard her only exercise is crossing the road to the temple.
Question that you are asking me, you are trying to put me into trouble. The chief priest is a very good model for Sri Lanka. For the animals also, the priest loves animals also. I will have a chat with the Gangarama temple chief priest.
Do you think there are enough elephants in Sri Lanka available for the Buddhist processions?
It had declined, I must say. It had declined.
The minister says he plans to address that decline in numbers by releasing elephants from the orphanage, although the state would remain the legal owner of those animals. But since we returned from Colombo, political resolve may have crumbled. It's been reported the government's planning to sell elephants to individuals for $66,000. Temples will get them for free. In Sri Lanka, elephants carry the weight of deeply felt national pride. They also bear the burden of religion, modernity and party politics. Thanks for listening, and if you liked what you heard on this edition of Crossing Continents, do please rate us on your podcast provider.